Hello, everyone. How are we doing today? This is going to be a quick introduction to using AI in a hackathon. I hope everyone is doing well today. Having a good day so far. It's Friday, so that's always good. Um, and effectively, how we're going to run this today is for anyone that's never used ChatGPT before, and a bit like, oh, what is AI? What is a large language model? I'm going to quickly run through how you can use the front end of ChatGPT and some ideas, some concepts around prompt engineering. And then Tim is going to talk about APIs and how to use that from a development side. As always, if you do have questions, please drop them in chat. Let's make sure I've got chat up. Yeah, hopefully, any questions, let me know. And I'm just going to kick off as soon as I know that the stream is definitely working, because at the moment, no one said anything, and I can't believe that that's. Just quickly check.
It's working.
It's working. Tim has told me in my ear it's working. That's how technical we are. Cool. So, first of all, what is a prompt? Uh, and what is prompt engineering? So prompting is the process of structuring an instruction that can be interpreted and understood by a generative AI model. Effectively, a prompt in this context is a natural language text describing the task that an AI should perform. Just for anyone that's never used AI before, I'm going to actually prompt the AI model now and ask for what we would call a one-shot prompt. So it's just something off the top of my head I need it to do. And I'm going to be like, cool, hey, do this thing. So here we go. Let's say for the hackathon, actually, what we're going to do is we're going to try and build something that an idea might be, hey, I run an e-commerce site and I have all of these customer engagements, but what I actually want to do is when a customer rings up, I just want to put their customer number in and it gives me sort of an overview of all of the engagements they've ever had with us. But to do that, to make that in a hackathon, I'm going to need to have like a lot of customer data. But let's just quickly one shot something like that. I am a e-commerce site selling push bikes. Um, I want to train my team on example complaints, a series of example complaints by one customer. Give me a transcript, a set of transcripts, from calls that they have made complaining that their bike is broken. Cool. So there we go. Hopefully, that one shot, think about it and give us a series of stuff back. This is always the beauty of live demos. There we go. Boom. Call one, initial complaint. Yada, yada, yada. So we don't need. I said you ruined it twice. You're so disappointed it's happening. I understand. But effectively, we can then use this as the basis of calling that customer 001, and we could put that into a table. We could run this multiple times, and then when we're building our project, we have a series of synthetic data that we can use to build and train our model on. That's all really cool. Using a one shot is great. And that is absolutely one way in a hackathon that you can use AI to generate a series of synthetic data that when you create your application, the database can be filled with a series of engagements using that. So that's one way of doing it. Um, but that's not the best way. Well, it could be the best way, but that's not necessarily the most academic way. The thing is, over time, as large language models have developed and have improved, scientists, academics have really started to understand the best way to prompt engineering, and interact and engage with large language models. So we want to be able to give you the best opportunity to do that and the best engagement way possible. It's not something we've just made up. This is off a series of academia, research, etc., etc., etc. All of the slides will be made available for everyone, so don't worry, you don't have to read every one of these articles, but if you want to, we'll give you the resources to do that because, hey, why not? Um, so one of the approaches that we use is a framework. Everyone loves frameworks in academia, right? It's a framework of how to prompt a large language model. So I'm going to create a new one, and we're actually going to do this as we go along. So this is called TIDC, and this is a way of prompting a large language model in a set format. Okay. So what we have is a task type. What is the thing we're asking it to do? The instruction, what to do. Then we're going to give it some guidelines. Do make sure you do this, but don't do that. So do's and don'ts. Give it an example and some content. Cool. So task. The task at hand, running a clear indication of the type of activity expected. It could be, if you're doing marketing, write an Instagram post to go alongside a video of a student who's graduated from a software development bootcamp. What a great thing for a large language model to do, but not for a hackathon. So what task we could do here is, I need a table that can go into, and I know it should go into whatever backend Supabase we're probably using, or you might use MongoDB, whatever backend you're choosing to use. But we're going to use an Excel file just to to keep it simple. That can go into an Excel table of a series of engagements from a customer ringing to complain about a bike they bought from our e-commerce push bike e-commerce website. So I need a table that can go into the Excel table of a series of made-up engagements on an e-commerce website for training purposes. Wicked. So that's the task. The instruction outlines the specific sets or guidelines that should follow to accomplish the task. This is crucial for ensuring that the model's output aligns. So what we're saying here is excellence. That's really good. So it's like the output of this should be a table with 6 columns. 6 columns. The first column is customer number, which in this case will be 001, and the following 5 columns are engagement 1 to 5. Within each of these columns, create an engagement, a series of engagements from the customer to use for training within my e-commerce customer care team. Awesome. Do come up with a series of engagements that progress the complaint level from the customer and outline the response from the representative they spoke to at the time. Then don't create more than one customer. Don't put this into any other table than can be used in Excel. Don't forget to include 5 engagements of escalating concern about the bike from the customer. An example. So example essentially gives it more concrete opportunity to do that. What I would have done if I thought about it is potentially brought in that previous one and given those examples of it, but we can just go an example, complaint and response in a row may be customer called to complain, seat had fallen off, representative apologized and stated, I can't spell apologized, and stated that the customer needed to send in picture evidence and call back later. Last but not least, we will have content. Let's just see what this comes back with. Live demo, who knows? Hey, so there's a table, customer number. As we can see, that's awesome. Customer callback furious, demanding a full refund. I'm not surprised, but that's not good. We need to have more of that. So this is great. Create a table with examples of 10 similar complaints and name them CUS001 to CUS010. This is where it could all go wrong because I've gone from a TIDC approach to a one-shot. So let's see what it does. I think the one thing I'd say about if you haven't used GPT or a large language model before, it's like this is giving you some guidelines of how to use it to synthesize some data. Just go have fun with it. Go and see what you can get back. Hopefully this is the GPT being slow and not my internet being terrible. I'm going to stick around on this for a moment and hopefully we get that synthetic data set back. It's taking a while. I'm not loving it. Hey, there we go. Whoa. So now, if we wanted to use a synthetic data set to build a piece that just said, for example, when we go over to Tim's API may be, all you do on the front end is put the customer number in, and what you do is, get customer number 001, and then the prompt on the back end might be give you an overview of the customer complaint. Just to show you that, so I'm going to start a new chat here. Here is an overview of customer complaint. Give me 4 bullet points that explain the history with the customer. Oh no, I've not copied it. Anyway, that's what I would do as a one shot. So it's short, it's sweet. I hope you enjoyed that very brief overview, and I am now going to hand over to Tim, who's going to talk us through. That was a front end version of it. Tim is going to talk about APIs and how to use those. So thank you, everyone. Over to Tim.
Thank you, James. That's awesome. Oh, fireworks. So yeah, I'm going to talk through using what James just talked about, but using it with code. So we're going to have a little recap about what we did last week, which was looking at APIs, because we're going to use ChatGPT's API for this as well. So we're going to put together what we did last week with what James just talked about. So give me one moment. So you may remember, you may not remember, this, which we did last week. This website, super exciting, super important, most important website you've ever seen in your life. Every time you refresh it, you get a different picture of a dog. So this is using an API called Dog CEO. And if you remember, just as a brief recap on the code, we had a function called call API. We made a fetch. We said, hey, we want to go and get the information that you have about a dog, and we want to get it on our website. We turn that response into some data that we can read, and then we just put that onto this image here, the dog image. So this is using an API in a website with HTML and JavaScript, and it made this amazing website. So we're going to put that together with ChatGPT. So you also may remember from 2 weeks ago, was it really 2 weeks ago, or was it 3 weeks ago? Who knows? We had this project here. We had a Raspberry Pi with some sensors on the top, and we were going to go and get temperature, pressure, and humidity data from this, put it into a database, and then we got this website out of it. And then here's an example. At some point the pressure dropped, or maybe the sensor stopped working, who knows, but it's important to keep all the data, or maybe it's important to get rid of those obvious anomalies. And so we had this chart, but at the moment that's all it is. It's flat. We go and get the data and we just display it, but we're not doing anything with it. The user doesn't have any way to interact with this information. So what I've put together here is a really basic example where when you click this button, the button is going to take all this information and it's going to say, hey, can I please have the next 12 hours of data as 2 data points? So right now and then in 12 hours, I want to see what does the ChatGPT analyze that is going to happen to these 3 metrics. So let's get the analysis. And so here we have another chart, and it's saying, okay, the temperature and the pressure will go up and the humidity will go down. Now I cannot predict the future, but I can take the temperature now and in 12 hours and find out whether this was right, and then maybe bolster that. And then the really important thing here is, just like James was saying, when he did his prompt, he didn't do one prompt and then was like, cool, I'm done. You work on what you're doing. You do one thing, and how can I improve this? So for example, when I first made this, I was getting some data and everything was a straight line. And it was like, yeah, cool, nothing's changing. So I had to change the prompt. We're going to have a look at that at the end. What we're going to have a look at is API plus what James just said, ChatGPT, and we're going to put them together and make something that does something like this. We're going to make a slightly simpler version together, and then I'll just preview the code for this afterwards. So this is the documentation for OpenAI, the overview page, and there's a whole bunch of different ways of doing it, and I'm just going to show you this basic example. So here's a website where I can write whatever I like. This is a test. Does it work, please? And I'm going to press go. And we get a response. Yes, it appears that the test is working. So this is ChatGPT. I have made a form. When I submit it, it goes and asks ChatGPT a question. Now, this looks an awful lot like actual ChatGPT that you just saw. And you may be wondering, well, what's the point of this? Because I already got ChatGPT with an input form. Well, the point is we can prove that we can make the request on our website. And then once we've done that, we can start to do data analysis, go and get information from a database and send it to ChatGPT and say, I want you to do this with it. Give me these predictions, give me this analysis, anything like that. So here I've got a blank example, and we're going to work on it here. I have my index.html and my app.js, and they're both empty. Got a few other files, but what I'm going to do is I want to make a form that looks like this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make our form. So let's write that now. We need a form, and that form is going to have a label for the prompt, and it's going to have an input, which is just going to have a name of prompt, because that's what it is. So this is a HTML form, and when you have a HTML form, you need a button so you can submit it. We have a button. Just put go. And I've already done some CSS, so it looks good already. Because otherwise it would have all just been in the top left and it would have looked terrible. And you don't want that. So we also need somewhere to put the responses that we're getting back. So we'll just make a div, and inside here we'll give it an ID of responses. So again, I promised last week that I would stop saying this. I'm about to break my promise. You don't need to understand everything that I'm doing. You just need to know kind of what's going on roughly in the area of what Tim is talking about, because there's going to be 10 people on your team at least. And so there will be people on your team that know how to do this backwards with their eyes closed. So all you need to know is that it is something that's happening that we have options to do things with. So give me 2 seconds. Okay. So in our JavaScript, we're going to have to go and get our all of our options that we want to use for ChatGPT. We also need to go and get the responses div and the form. So if you are familiar with, this is called DOM manipulation. Here we have some HTML elements. With JavaScript, we can go and get them and interact with them. So here, I'm going to get my responses div, say document.get element by ID, and it's got an ID. We gave it the ID of responses. So now we can access this div, these next to each other, so we can see them at the same time. We can access this div using JavaScript, which is pretty cool. And we'll need to do the same thing with our form. So we'll say const form equals document dot get element by ID. No, we haven't given an ID, so let's give it an ID. Okay, so now we have our div and our form. Cool. So when you're using the ChatGPT API, it is exactly the same as what you're used to. You make a fetch. Here we called dog CEO and we said, hey, can I have that information? But this time we're going to use api.openai.com, and then there's a few bits that go after. And so I'm going to copy a few things as well as type some bits out, because what I don't want is you to get bored watching me type out things that you won't even have to type yourself. So one of the things that's really important to know when you're doing things like web development and software development is you don't have to type everything out. Sometimes we have to just know where to find the answer. Great question. Sorry, I'm just trying to find your name, and I just realized it was right next to the message. Marie Scarf has asked about why using ChatGPT as opposed to Microsoft Copilot, and what's the difference. So with my understanding of Copilot is, or my kind of in my head, this is what Copilot is for. It would be in my code editor, which you're looking at right now. This one's called VS Code. I would install, I call it GitHub Copilot, Microsoft Copilot. I'll put it in here, and as I'm typing code, it will then give me a suggestion of how to finish that code, which is pretty cool. As if you are a graduate of tech educators, you'll know that that's banned and you're not allowed to use it, not while you're on the course at least. So there isn't a specific reason why you shouldn't use one or the other. We're just using this one for the demo. Alex has also made a good point about my OpenAI key. I am going to talk about that at the end, and I promise I've been very careful and you're not going to see it on the screen today. So there are some things we need to put into our code to tell ChatGPT our options, if you like. So we need to tell it what is the maximum amount of tokens we want it to use. Now, without going into too much detail, this is essentially saying to ChatGPT, how big is my request and my response? And certain models have different limits. And Tim, what is a model? Well, a model is what version of ChatGPT am I going to use for my request? So in this example, I'm going to use GPT 3.5 Turbo Instruct. Now, before anyone asks, why are you using that one, Tim? And the answer is, it works when I was testing different models. So we're using this one. I haven't got a better answer than that. We're going to have just a user of one. We are going to put in a few things that we're going to kind of skip over, not because they're not important, because you can read about them and they're not really the point of this demo. We've got temperature, we've got frequency penal. I can't type. Yeah, and we're going to put 0 and let's put 0, and we need to get our API key. Now, Alex made a joke in the chat. in this file called .env, which I am not going to click on, is my API key, which I got from here. But you must absolutely, at all costs, protect your API keys. They are yours. Like I said, I think in the previous demo, it's like giving someone your API key is like giving someone your car key, but attached to it is your license plate and where you've parked it. Don't give it out to anyone. It's important. It's secret. So in here is my API key. I almost clicked it. So I'm gonna make a new variable that goes and gets it from that file without you seeing it, because that would be bad. I'm using something called Vite to run my website. So this is how you use environment variables with Vite. If you are a dev or you've done our course, which would make you a dev, you might have a different way of doing it. There's no right way. This is how I've chosen to do it. So just like with the demo we saw before, we needed a function to call our API, and that was because we don't know how long it takes. We don't know how long it's going to take for my client to get information from their server, so we do it asynchronously. So we're going to write a function, and we're going to call it chat request, because that's what we're doing. Okie doke. And here we have a form. I'm trying not to get too sidetracked, because I could easily talk for maybe 10 minutes about each line of code that I'm about to write. But the short version of what I'm doing right here is I'm getting the information from the event of me submitting the form. So when I submit the form with this button that says go, I'm going to get the prompt from this input, which has a name of prompt. If I can type properly, event.target.prompt.value. Okay, so that is my prompt. That whatever I type into this input will appear in this variable, the value of it. Okie doke. So the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to go back to that demo we looked at before. We need to make a fetch. We're going to call it response. Whatever we get back, we're going to call it response. So let's have a look at that now. So I'm going to say const response equals await fetch. And in here, I'm going to put, I'm not going to make you watch me type it out because I won't type it right. openai.com/v1/completions. This information is from the docs. I don't remember this information. When I need to do it, I go and look at the docs, or I look at a previous project that I've done to go and find that information so I can do it again. The main difference between what we did last week and what we're doing this week is I have to give some extra information to this fetch. I can't just put this. I need to tell it what my API key is. I need to tell it what my prompt is. I need to tell it all these information I've given here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a comma. And I'm going to write what we call an object in JavaScript. An object is just like a list of things that are all named. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to give it the method of post, because that is the method it asks us to use. And this part, I never type this out because I never type it right. This is just to say we have access, we are allowed to do this. This is the type of request we're making, and here is my key. Here is the car key that I have requested. May I please start the car? And then finally, we need to give a whole bunch of stuff into the body of the request. This information has to be given to ChatGPT so we can say, this is what I want, please give me something in response. So in there, we've in something called the body, and we need to send it in a JSON format. So this is going to look weird, but all we're doing is basically saying, hey, here is a big string of stuff that I want to give you. Please accept it, ChatGPT, and it will go, thank you very much, yum, yum, yum. It actually does that if you listen really carefully. So what we're going to do in here, we need to put the prompt that we've just got from our form. We need to put the number of tokens we want to use. We need to give it the model, which is ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo Instruct, which I've spelt wrong, which I've spelt right. We need to give it the user, the temperature, the frequency, penalty, which I'm going to write slightly differently. I don't know why I changed the way I was writing that halfway through. And that is our request. It looks weirder than this one, but again, I told you I was going to stop saying it. I lied. I'm going to say it again. This is not information you have to constantly remember and have in the back of your head at all times. This is information that you will get from a demo, which I can supply for you. It's information that you'll get from the docs. Really, really important. This isn't the stuff that you have to keep in your head. This is the stuff you know how to find. So you may or may not remember. I won't ask you to tell me in the chat because otherwise you'll just sit here watching me for 15 seconds, wait for an answer. What do I do with this response? And the answer is I need to get information out of it using the method of JSON. So I'm going to say const data, this is my data, equals await response dot JSON. So now my data is the big response I got back from ChatGPT. Now this is the part where I might accidentally do what Alex said. And if that is the case at the end of the demo, I'll quickly change my API key. I'm going to show you what the data looks like when we make a request. So let's just take a step back and recap everything we've talked about. We've set up all of this funky stuff to make sure that ChatGPT knows what we're asking for. We have created a form and we've created a div, and we went and got those as what we call DOM nodes so that we can take those HTML things and interact with them in JavaScript. We're not doing anything with this yet, but the form, what we want to do is we want to listen for when that is submitted. And what we're going to do in a moment is write that code. And we're going to run this function that takes the information from the form, the prompt, and it puts that as part of a request we're making to the API. We give it all of this information. We give it our API key so that it allows us to have that information. And let's see what we get back. But before we can do anything, we need to say form.add event listener when it is submitted, run chat request. So just to talk about this line, when we submit the form, run this function. It's that simple. When we submit this form, run the function, and this form is this form. It's basically magic. Okay, so shall we try it? I'm going to inspect. Hope dearly that I don't give anything away. And I'm going to put in here, this is a test, just because I know that works. And I'm going to press go. Moment of truth. Oh, we got back some weird looking stuff, but let's see what it is. It is an object. It has choices, created, ID, model, object, usage, and thankfully it doesn't have my API key in it. Okay, so let's have a look at choices. It seems to be an array with one response, and inside there we have a whole bunch of information we don't care about, but here we go. Look, this is a test of the emergency broadcast system. This is only a test. Brilliant. ChatGPT's got a humor. It said this as its response. This is only a test. If this had been an actual emergency, you would have been instructed on where to go and what to do. This concludes the test. Nice one. So what we got back from the API was a whole bunch of information, including this text, which is basically like saying, typing into the normal ChatGPT and getting a response. But instead of doing that, we did it on our page. So the final thing to do is just like we did here, where we set the source of our image to be the information we got back from the API. Let's do that here. Let's take data and put it into responses. So we're going to say we're going to make a new p tag, just call it p. P stands for paragraph, and it's just a way for HTML to kind of separate bits of text. And we're going to say document.create element, and we'll make a p tag. And then we will set the text content of that p tag to be, now this is going to look weird, but I promise I'll explain it, data.choices 0.text. Data is the thing we just looked at. Choices is an item inside of it. This 0 is because choices is actually a list of items. It just so happens that it's only got one thing. And in coding, when you have a list of items, the first one is 0, the second one is 1, the third one is 2, just, as a gatekeeping measure to keep other people out of coding, I guess. That was a joke. And then we want to get the text out of that choice. And so then we're just going to get our responses div and append the p tag. So in theory, we've done it. Let me just close this because it's bigger in the way. We have, when we submit the form, we go and get the prompts that we've typed into the input. We've made a funky request that you do not have to remember how to type because you'll have it in front of you and you can copy and paste it, and that is allowed, and that is how a lot of devs do it. They don't remember everything. They go and find it from somewhere else. I am never going to stop beating that drum. We go and get our information from our response, and we make a new p tag. We put the text into our p tag, and we put the p tag onto the page. Are you ready for magic? Shall we see? I have just created a website that takes a prompt and makes a request to you. Is that cool? Bet you didn't think this Friday you'd be coming to see a dev ask AI for approval. Yes, that sounds very interesting and interactive. I would love to check out your website and see how it works. You know what? ChatGPT, I don't believe you. But it doesn't matter because it works. We have created a website that uses information that we've given it, put it out as, and put it out to the ChatGPT. Wait, I can't remember how I started that sentence. We have created a website that takes information we've typed or we've got from a database, and it sends it to AI, and we get back something. Now, this is fine. This is just ChatGPT, but wouldn't it be cooler if we gave it, I don't know, temperature, humidity, and pressure information from a database that we got from a Raspberry Pi and asked it to give us some data analysis, something like this, where every time we click it, it gives us an analysis of the next 12 hours. Now, it should be the same, and it's not. And that's where prompt engineering, which James was talking about earlier, knowing what the prompt should be. So I'm going to show you I'm just going to show you the code for this. There is a lot more code in this demo that I'm about to show you than what we've just done. But most of the code is just making the chart. The part with the ChatGPT API is the same as what we've just looked at. So here we have all the code that was the same. It's just getting the chart, getting the information from the database. But here, where are we? We have these. You recognize all of this? It's exactly what we just looked at. It's exactly what we just did on our previous demo. We have a function. Oh, look, it's got the same name as the one we just did. Aren't we clever? We get the prompt. We give it some data. We make a request. Does that look familiar? We get that data from the request and we return it. And then here we are just drawing the chart every time the button is clicked. We're just drawing another chart. And that's just what all that code up above does. And so this is the point where I am going to ask a question, and you are going to watch me sit here for 15 seconds just to see if anyone has an answer. You are making a website with some data from some sensors. It is saving that information into, oh, I've disappeared. It's saving that information into a database, and then you are pulling it down. Let's say it's information about the temperature, or it could be information about speed. It could be information about color changes, about footfall traffic, you name it. What could you do? What could you get AI to analyze? I'm going to pause, and I'm actually going to go back to here because I promised I'd show something and I didn't show you. It's here. Here's my prompt. Please analyze this data and send back a prediction of the next 12 hours with 2 entries, one in 1 minute's time and the other for in 12 hours time in the same format. This line here means that it makes my life much easier as a developer to put that information on the page. Please respond with only the JSON object. This was maybe version 10 from when I was testing and building this, because it kept not working. It kept returning no data or just the same data. There were no changes. So it took a lot of iteration. It took lots of practice, and it's really important. You're not going to get it right first time. If you get it right first time, something's probably gone wrong. So I haven't seen any questions in the chat, so I'm going to assume that you had a question, but you answered it yourself. So well done. Yes, I am really excited to see what you guys can build with a website. And Jess, if you could go let James know we are wrapping up. That is how you use an API in code to call your AI to get information back. And the sky is the limit for what you can build with it. So yeah, thank you so much. It has been fun getting this one ready. I'm excited to see what you guys build, and I will catch you